My name is Emily Parker. I'm 35 years old, and until that day, I truly believed I had mastered the art of staying quiet for the sake of family harmony. Then I walked into the storage area of a small restaurant carrying a pack of birthday, candles in one hand and paper plates in the other, and I saw my daughter's birthday cake lying in the trash. Pink frosting was smeared across a black garbage bag. The decorative butterflies she had spent weeks choosing were crushed and broken. Her name, carefully written in white icing, was buried beneath coffee stains, napkins, and discarded food containers. For a moment, I just stood there. Behind me, the room went silent. It was the kind of silence that appears when everyone understands something. Cruel has happened, but nobody wants to be the first person to acknowledge it. My brother Ryan leaned casually against the counter. When I asked him what happened, he didn't look guilty. He smiled. Actually smiled. Then he said, "Honestly, I don't know why everyone makes such a big deal about a kid's cake." My daughter stood beside me in her birthday dress. She was still wearing the paper crown her friends had helped decorate earlier that afternoon. She stared at the trash can as if she couldn't understand what she was looking at, as if her brain refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. I didn't yell, I didn't throw anything. I didn't cause a scene. Instead, I picked her up, wrapped my arms around her, and walked out of the restaurant while every member of my family watched. Nobody stopped us. Nobody apologized. Nobody defended her. The next morning, my mother called before breakfast. She was crying. "Emily, please answer your brother." I looked at my daughter sleeping on the couch. Her birthday crown was folded beside her. "Why?" I asked. There was a pause. Then my mother said something that immediately told me Ryan was in trouble. "The wedding venue is threatening to cancel everything." I looked at the sleeping child whose birthday had been ruined less than 24 hours earlier. Then I answered calmly, "That sounds like Ryan's problem," and I hung up. Before I tell you what happened next and why my brother suddenly needed my help after treating my daughter like she didn't matter, let me explain why that cake was so important. To most people, it was just a birthday cake. Sugar, flour, frosting, candles. But to my daughter, Sophie, it meant much more. She had spent nearly a month talking about it. Every evening, she would ask whether the butterflies would be bright enough, whether her friends would like it, whether people would sing loudly when she blew out the candles. She was turning 8 years old, and because money had been tight for nearly a year, I had been saving little by little to make the day special. Not extravagant, just special. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't trying to compete with anyone. Simply wanted my daughter to have one day where she felt important, one day where she felt celebrated, one day where she knew she mattered. That's why seeing that cake in the trash hit me so hard. It wasn't really about the cake. It was about everything surrounding it. It was the way nobody rushed to comfort Sophie. It was the way nobody told her she had done nothing wrong. It was the way my brother looked at her disappointment and acted like the whole thing was a joke. My mother stood near the dining table with one hand covering her mouth, but she never corrected him. She never told him he was wrong. She never hugged her granddaughter. Instead, she looked at me with the same expression she'd worn my entire life, the expression that silently begged me not to create conflict, because that had always been my role. Keep the peace. Stay quiet. Accept the insult. Pretend everything was fine. Ryan had always been the favorite. When we were children and he broke something valuable, everyone said boys would be boys. When he got into trouble at school, people said he was under pressure. When he forgot birthdays, holidays, or family commitments, people excused it because he was busy. Meanwhile, every mistake I made was treated like evidence of some personal flaw. I was dramatic, too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult. Years later, after my divorce, I moved into a smaller apartment and started rebuilding my life. I worked as an event planner. The job paid the bills, but barely. My mother told me not to burden the family with my problems. Yet when Ryan got engaged and discovered how expensive weddings could be, everyone suddenly expected me to help. I reviewed contracts, recommended vendors, answered questions, connected him with people in the industry. I even used professional contacts to negotiate discounts. Because despite everything, I still believed. Family should help family. That was before he humiliated my daughter. That was before he threw away her birthday cake and laughed about it. After we left the restaurant, Sophie didn't cry immediately. That made it worse. She sat quietly in the back seat holding her paper crown, looking out the window, trying very hard to be brave. About halfway home, she finally spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart?" She hesitated, then asked the question that shattered my heart. "Did Uncle Ryan throw away my cake because I was bad?" I had to pull the car over, immediately. I parked on the side of the road and turned around. "No, Sophie." She looked at me, with watery eyes. "No, sweetheart, you did absolutely nothing wrong." "Then why did he do it?" Children ask questions adults spend years avoiding. I took a deep breath. Sometimes people make cruel choices because of what's happening inside them, and sometimes they try to make other people carry that hurt. Her lower lip trembled. Then, the tears finally came. I climbed into the back seat and held her while traffic rushed past outside. And right there on the side of the road, I made her a promise. "We're getting another cake." She nodded against my shoulder. "A better one." Another nod. "And nobody is touching it unless you say they can." That finally made her smile. Just a little. But while I held her, another thought quietly formed in the back of my mind. For years, I had protected Ryan from consequences. For years, everyone had. And what had that produced? A grown man who could ruin a child's birthday and laugh about it. That evening, after Sophie fell asleep, my phone lit up. A message from Ryan. I opened it. "Look, sorry if you got upset about the cake. Wedding planning is stressful. Let's move on." I read it twice, then 3 times. The more I read it, the angrier I became. He wasn't apologizing. Not really. He wasn't sorry about hurting Sophie. He wasn't sorry about destroying her birthday. He was only annoyed that I hadn't immediately forgiven him. A few minutes later, another text arrived. "Mom says the venue might contact you tomorrow. Please don't make this complicated." I actually laughed, because apparently the strange part wasn't a 36-year-old man throwing away a child's birthday cake. The strange part was me refusing to pretend it never happened. The next morning, my phone rang before 8 o'clock. It was my mother. The panic in her voice was obvious. "Emily, please listen. The wedding venue says Ryan's final payment didn't go through." I sat upright. "What does that have to do with me?" There was silence. Then she answered. "He said your name is connected to the reservation." My stomach tightened. "My name is connected to what?" She began crying again. "He told everyone you were helping manage the account. Please, honey, just call them. If the wedding gets canceled, everyone will blame you." There it was. Not everyone will blame Ryan for failing to pay. Not everyone will blame Ryan for lying. Everyone will blame me. I closed my eyes. Then I answered with one word. "No," my mother gasped. "Emily, this is your brother's wedding." I looked across the room at the unopened birthday decorations still sitting inside a grocery bag. The decorations from my daughter's ruined party. Then I said quietly, "And yesterday was my daughter's birthday. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine," and I ended the call. For a few seconds after ending the call, I just sat there staring at the wall. My hands were shaking, not because I felt guilty, because I knew exactly what was coming. Family pressure, phone calls, messages. The usual campaign designed to convince me that someone else's bad decisions were somehow my responsibility. Notification appeared on my laptop before I could even finish my coffee. The subject line immediately caught my attention. Final notice regarding Wilson wedding reservation. Wilson, Ryan's last name. My stomach tightened. I opened the email. Then I read it again and again. The venue wasn't asking me for a favor. According to their records, my professional event planning business was connected to the wedding reservation. My company name appeared directly on the account. My business email was listed as a secondary contact. My old office phone number was attached to the file, and at the bottom of the document was something that made my blood run cold, a signature, supposedly mine, except it wasn't. At first glance, it looked convincing, close enough that a stranger might accept it, without question. But I knew my own signature. The angle was wrong. The final letters were different. Certain details had clearly been copied by someone trying too hard. The longer I looked at it, the angrier I became. Months earlier, I had sent Ryan sample documents while helping him understand venue contracts. I suddenly realized exactly what had happened. Either he had convinced himself that my advice counted as authorization, or he had knowingly used my information, assuming I would eventually rescue him if things went wrong. Neither explanation made me feel any better. I immediately called the venue. Fortunately, I already knew the general manager. Her name was Melissa. We had worked together on multiple events over the years. The moment she answered and heard my voice, she sounded relieved. "Emily, thank goodness." That told me everything. Ryan had already caused problems. "Melissa," I said, "I just received the reservation documents." There was a pause. "Then you've seen the guarantor paperwork." "I have." Another pause. "Did you sign it?" "No." The answer came out instantly, firm, clear, certain. "I never signed anything. I never agreed to guarantee his wedding. I never accepted financial responsibility." Silence. Then I heard papers moving on her desk. The documents indicate otherwise. The documents are false? Her tone changed immediately. Melissa had known me professionally for years. She knew how careful I was. She knew I documented everything. She knew I never signed contracts casually. "Can you provide a written statement?" she asked. "Of course. If your signature was used without authorization, we can remove your company from the reservation." My heart pounded. And then, another pause. "The couple will need to provide full payment by 5 o'clock today." I looked at the clock. 14 a.m. Ryan had less than 8 hours to solve a disaster he had created himself, and for the first time in years, I wasn't going to save him. The moment I ended the call, my phone exploded. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Ryan, texts from relatives I barely spoke to. One aunt wrote, "Your mother says you're causing problems with the wedding?" Another cousin wrote, "Whatever happened, can't this wait until after the ceremony?" Of course, that was always the solution. Delay accountability, postpone consequences, protect Ryan. My phone buzzed again. A message from Ryan. "Do not talk to the venue until we speak." Stared at it. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement that he'd used my information. Just another order, like he genuinely believed he still had authority over me. The old version of me might have panicked. The old version of me might have called him immediately. The old version of me would have listened to excuses and searched for a compromise. But something had changed. Sophie walked into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She saw my expression. Then she asked a question that cut through years of family conditioning. "Is Uncle Ryan mad at you because of me?" I closed my laptop, knelt in front of her, took both of her hands. "No." She looked uncertain. "Then why is everyone calling?" I thought carefully before answering. "Because children remember these moments. They're calling because Uncle Ryan doesn't like hearing the word no." She stared at me, then nodded slowly. The answer seemed to make sense to her. Maybe because children often understand selfish people better than adults do. I hugged her, and in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. No compromises, no half measures, no rescuing. I sat back down at my laptop, opened a new document, and began writing. Stated clearly that I had never signed any guarantee agreement. I explained that I had never accepted financial responsibility for the wedding. I attached copies of genuine documents containing my real signature. I included the original emails showing that I had merely introduced Ryan to the venue as a family referral. Nothing more, nothing less. Finally, I requested the immediate removal of my company from all wedding records. My finger hovered over the send button. For a moment, I hesitated. Not because I doubted the decision, because I understood the consequences. The second I sent that email, there would be no going back. Then I remembered Sophie staring into that trash can. I pressed send. 5 minutes later, Melissa replied, "Statement received. We will proceed accordingly. That was it." No dramatic music, no shouting, no revenge speech, just a professional boundary documented in writing, and somehow that felt more powerful than any argument. 10 minutes later, Ryan called, again. This time I answered. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't apologize. The first words out of his mouth were, "What the hell did you do?" I leaned against the kitchen counter. I told the truth. A short laugh came through the speaker, an angry laugh. "So you're really doing this? Doing what?" "Trying to ruin my wedding." I almost laughed myself. "No, Ryan, you ruined your wedding." His breathing became heavier. "You seriously think all this is because of a stupid cake?" There it was. Again. The cake. Always the cake. Never Sophie's feelings, never his behavior, never accountability, just a cake. You used my business information without permission. You were supposed to help. Helping isn't the same thing as guaranteeing your debt. His voice hardened. Come on, you always help. That sentence hit me harder than he realized, because it revealed exactly how he saw me. Not as a sister, not as family, as a safety net, as someone whose purpose was fixing his mistakes. The silence stretched between us. Then he said something that changed everything. "If you don't fix this, I'll tell everyone you're jealous." I blinked. Jealous? Because Rachel is getting the wedding you never had. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. My divorce had nearly destroyed me. Ryan knew that. He knew how hard I worked afterward. He knew how difficult those years had been, and yet he used it as a weapon without hesitation. Something inside me became very calm, the kind of calm that appears right before a door closes forever. "You threw away my daughter's birthday cake." He scoffed. "You keep saying that? You humiliated her. It wasn't that serious. You used my business information. You would have helped anyway. You lied." Another pause. Then he snapped. "You're choosing a kid's feelings over your brother." I looked toward the dining table. Sophie sat there drawing butterflies on a sheet of paper. Purple butterflies, like the ones that had been destroyed. Yes. The answer came instantly, without hesitation, every single time. Then I ended the call. By noon, the family group chat had become a battlefield. Ryan posted first. "Emily is trying to destroy my wedding," my mother followed. "Please pray this misunderstanding gets resolved. A cousin asked what happened. Ryan answered before I could. She's angry about dessert. Dessert." That was how he described what happened to Sophie. Not humiliation, not cruelty, not a child's ruined birthday. Dessert. I didn't respond. Instead, I started documenting everything. Screenshots, voicemails, emails, text, messages. Because I'd learned something important over the years. The moment entitled "People Start Losing Control," they begin rewriting history, and I knew Ryan was already preparing his version. The version where he was the victim. The version where I was the villain. The version where none of this was his fault. At 3:41 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, and there he was. Ryan, pacing outside my apartment, phone in hand, face red, panic written all over him. Standing beside him was my mother. She already looked exhausted, as if she'd spent the entire day trying to hold together a situation that should never have existed. I didn't open the door immediately. First, I sent Sophie to her room with headphones and her favorite movie. Only then did I unlock the door. The moment it opened, Ryan stepped forward, like he expected to walk right inside. I blocked the doorway. That alone seemed to offend him. "We need to talk." I folded my arms. "No." His eyes narrowed. "No? You need to talk. I need to decide whether listening is worth my time." My mother visibly flinched. Ryan stared at me. For the first time in years, I wasn't acting like the version of me he was used to, and he had absolutely no idea how to handle it. Ryan stared at me for several seconds. It was almost like he couldn't process what was happening. For years, every argument between us followed the same pattern. He pushed, I compromised, he demanded, I adjusted, he made mistakes. I cleaned them up. Now, the pattern was broken, and he hated it. "Are you serious right now?" he asked. "Completely." He glanced past me, trying to look into the apartment, maybe searching for Sophie, maybe looking for some sign that I would eventually give in. I stepped slightly to the side and blocked his view. "Say what you came to say." My mother immediately jumped in. "Emily, sweetheart, please. Everyone's emotional." I looked at her. Interesting. Not everyone was emotional when Sophie was standing next to a trash can looking at her destroyed birthday cake. But now that Ryan's wedding was in danger, emotions suddenly mattered. Ryan took a deep breath, then switched to his performance voice, the polished version, the one he used whenever he wanted sympathy. "Look, I'm sorry about the cake." I said nothing. I shouldn't have said what I said. Still nothing. But you've got to understand something. There it was, the word "but," the word that turns an apology into an excuse. "I'm under incredible pressure." I remained silent. "The wedding is in 3 days." Nothing. "Rachel's family is asking questions." Nothing. "The venue is threatening. Cancellation." Still nothing. Finally, he threw his hands up. "What do you want from me?" The answer came immediately. "The truth." He frowned. "What?" "The truth." Silence. I crossed my arms. "Tell me why you threw away the cake." His eyes shifted toward my mother, then back to me. "It was in the way." I stared at him. "The cake was in the way?" "Yes." "Of what?" He sighed dramatically. "The table setup." I blinked. "The table setup." He nodded. "The adults were discussing wedding plans." I felt something click into place, a missing puzzle piece, a detail I hadn't fully understood before. "The birthday party interrupted your wedding conversation." Ryan rolled his eyes. "Don't make it sound like that." "Then explain it." He exhaled heavily. "Rachel's parents were there." "So?" "We were talking about wedding details." "So?" The whole afternoon became about Sophie. The words hung in the air. My mother looked down. Ryan realized too late what he'd admitted, and suddenly everything made sense. The cake hadn't been damaged, it hadn't been misplaced, it hadn't been thrown away by accident. He got rid of it because he didn't like sharing attention with an 8-year-old child. I stared at him. It was her birthday. For a couple hours. I actually laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh. "A couple hours?" He shrugged. "Kids don't remember this stuff." I felt my jaw tighten. "You looked at a child celebrating her birthday and somehow decided she was competing with you." His face hardened. "That's not what happened." "It sounds exactly like what happened. You're twisting everything." "No, Ryan, you're explaining it perfectly." My mother finally spoke. "Emily, please." I turned toward her. She looked exhausted, older somehow, as if the weight of years was finally catching up. "I know he was wrong. Wrong. Such a small word. Not cruel. Not selfish. Not humiliating. Just wrong. But don't destroy his future over one mistake." One mistake. I almost laughed again. The forged documents, the unpaid venue, the lies, the threats, the cake, the insults towards Sophie, the manipulation. Somehow all of it had become one mistake. Meanwhile, my refusal to rescue him had become a catastrophe. "Mom," I said quietly. When Sophie stood there looking at her birthday cake in the trash, "Where were you?" She looked away. I continued. When Ryan insulted her, "Where were you?" Silence. When he used my business information, "Who did you call?" She swallowed hard. I already knew the answer. "Me," I nodded, "because everyone expects me to fix things." "Emily?" "No," I shook my head. "Do you understand what—" "You're asking me to teach my daughter?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm asking you to keep the family together." The sentence hit me harder than I expected, because for years I would have agreed. For years I believed that was my responsibility. Then I looked back toward Sophie's bedroom, and suddenly the answer felt obvious. "No." My mother's face fell. "No? You're not asking me to keep the family together." I pointed toward Ryan. "You're asking me to keep him comfortable." Ryan immediately stepped forward. "Enough." I looked at him. "Call the venue." "No." "Tell them the paperwork was misunderstood." "No." "Put your company back on the reservation until after the wedding." "No." His jaw clenched. "I'll pay you back." I laughed, for the third time that day. But this laugh wasn't disbelief, it was amusement, because he still didn't understand. This was never about money. "You want me to risk my business. I said I'd pay you back. You want me to risk my professional reputation. You're exaggerating. You want me to risk my credit. It won't come to that." Every answer made things worse. Every answer proved my point. He wasn't taking responsibility. He was looking for another safety net, another person to absorb the consequences, another person to carry the burden, the same thing he'd always done. Then, he lowered his voice and said something I never expected. "You owe me." The hallway went silent. Even my mother looked shocked. I stared at him. "Owe you?" "Yes." "For what exactly?" He folded his arms. "For being your brother." I honestly thought I'd misheard him. "What?" "For all the years Mom worried about you after your divorce." I felt something inside me go cold. "For all the family gatherings that revolved around your problems." My mother whispered his name. "Ryan." But he kept going, because people reveal themselves when they're desperate, and Ryan was desperate. "You act like you're the victim all the time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think Sophie is the center of the universe." My hands tightened. "And honestly," he laughed bitterly, "she needs to learn she's not special." Silence. Complete silence. Even Ryan seemed to realize what he'd just said. The hallway felt frozen. My mother covered her mouth. I stared at him, then slowly opened the door wider, not to invite him inside, to show him the exit. "Leave." His expression changed. For the first time all day, I saw genuine disbelief. "What?" "Leave." He looked at my mother, then back at me. "You're serious?" "Very." His face twisted with anger. "So that's it?" I nodded. "That's it." "You're choosing her over us?" The question would have hurt me years ago. Now it sounded ridiculous. "There is no us if protecting you requires sacrificing my child." He pointed at me. "Don't come to the wedding." I almost smiled. I wasn't planning to. His eyes widened slightly. "Good." That answer surprised him. "I don't attend celebrations built on lies." His face turned red. "You'll regret this." Maybe he believed it. Maybe he'd spent his whole life believing people needed him more than they actually did. I shook my head. No. The answer felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, I don't think I will. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Ryan turned around. He started walking toward the elevator. My mother followed behind him. Halfway there, she stopped, looked back, and for a second, I thought she might apologize. Maybe to me, maybe to Sophie, maybe for all of it. Instead, she said quietly, "I never wanted things to become like this." I nodded. I know. Because I believed her. The problem was that wanting and choosing weren't the same thing. For years, she hadn't wanted conflict. But every time conflict appeared, she chose Ryan, and eventually those choices became reality. The elevator doors opened. Ryan stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, he shouted one final sentence. "When the wedding gets canceled, everyone will know it's your fault." The doors shut. Silence returned. I closed my apartment door, locked it, then stood there for a long moment. Not because I was afraid, because I was tired. Tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. Tired of fixing. Tired of apologizing. Tired of carrying responsibility for other people's decisions. A few minutes later, Sophie emerged from her room, her headphones rested around her neck. I wasn't sure how much she'd heard. She walked over slowly, then slipped her small hand into mine. "Mom?" I looked down. "Yeah, sweetheart?" She hesitated, then asked the question, the one that would stay with me forever. "Am I special?" My heart broke instantly. I dropped to my knees, pulled her into my arms, and held her tightly. "Yes." Her voice was tiny. "Really?" "Yes." I kissed the top of her head. "You are special." She looked up at me, waiting. "Not because you're better than anyone else, not because you're more important than other people, but because every child deserves to be loved, protected, celebrated, and treated with kindness." Tears filled her eyes. Then, she hugged me harder, and in that moment, something inside me changed. I stopped wanting revenge. I stopped wanting Ryan to suffer. What I wanted was simpler. Truth, consequences. And for my daughter to learn that when someone tries to make you feel small, you don't shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You stand up even when your hands shake, even when your voice shakes, even when you're scared. And I was scared, but I was still standing. The next 24 hours would change everything. The next day was worse. Not because Ryan contacted me, I expected that. Not because my mother kept calling. I expected that too. It was worse because the entire family suddenly became involved. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had advice, and almost nobody had the full story. By 8 in the morning, my phone already contained a dozen new messages. One aunt sent a voice note explaining that weddings were stressful and people sometimes acted out of character. A cousin reminded me that family should forgive family. Another relative told me I needed to be the bigger person. The bigger person. Hated that phrase, because somehow it always meant the same thing. Accept bad treatment. Stay quiet. Make things easier for the person causing the problem. Never once did anyone suggest Ryan should be the bigger person. Never once did anyone suggest he should take responsibility. Only me. Always me. Around 10 o'clock, my mother sent another message. "Please don't make me choose between my children." I stared at the screen for several seconds. Then I typed a reply. "You already did. I just didn't notice it for a long time." After sending it, I silenced my phone. Then I spent the rest of the morning making pancakes with Sophie. Chocolate chip pancakes, her favorite. For 20 minutes, the world felt normal. No wedding, no family drama, no lies, just flour, syrup, laughter, and an 8-year-old trying to create a smiley face out of chocolate chips. I needed that, more than I realized. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time, the name surprised me. Rachel, Ryan's fiancée. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered, "Hello?" There was a long pause. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different, quieter, more serious. "Emily, can I ask you something honestly?" I sat down at the kitchen table. "Of course." Another pause. Then she asked, "Did Ryan use your company information without permission?" Straight to the point, no small talk, no excuses. I respected that. "Yes." Silence. Then another question. "Did he throw away Sophie's birthday cake?" My jaw tightened. "Yes." A longer silence followed. I could hear her breathing, thinking, Processing. Finally, she spoke. He told me the cake was already ruined. Of course he did. He said you blamed him because you were upset about the wedding. I closed my eyes. Of course he said that too. Rachel. Yeah? I have emails. She didn't interrupt. I have text messages, still silent. I have the venue documents. A few seconds passed. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Can you send them to me? The room suddenly felt very quiet because that question mattered a lot. Until now, Ryan controlled the story. He told everyone his version. He shaped the narrative. He decided who knew what. But Rachel was asking for evidence, actual evidence. Not feelings, not opinions, facts. Thought carefully before answering. Then I said, yes. I forwarded everything. The venue emails, the guarantor paperwork, Melissa's response, Ryan's messages, the screenshot where he called Sophie's ruined birthday dessert drama, the text where he warned me not to make things complicated, the threat about my divorce, everything. I added no commentary, no explanations, no emotional speech, just facts. The truth was ugly enough on its own. An hour passed, then another. I heard nothing, not from Rachel, not from Ryan, not from anyone. And honestly, that worried me more than constant messages. Silence usually meant something was happening. At around 3 o'clock, the family group chat suddenly became active. A new message appeared, not from Ryan, not from my mother, from Rachel's older sister. Why is Emily's company listed on the wedding contract? No answer. A few minutes later, another message appeared, this time from Rachel's father. We were told Emily had agreed to guarantee the venue. Still no answer. Then my mother finally responded. This is a private family matter. I stared at the screen. Private. Interesting. When I was being blamed publicly, it wasn't private. But now that uncomfortable questions were being asked, suddenly privacy mattered. Then Rachel replied, and the entire chat went silent. It became my family's matter when Ryan lied to us. I read that message 3 times. For years, I had felt like I was standing alone against a wall. Now, for the first time, someone was standing beside me. Someone else had finally seen what was happening. My phone immediately started ringing. Ryan. I declined the call. He called again. Declined, again, declined. Bye. The 7th call, he started texting. What did you send her? I didn't answer. A minute later, you had no right, still nothing. Another message. You're trying to destroy my relationship. That one finally earned a response. No, I'm refusing to protect your lies. His reply came instantly. You always do this. I stared at the message. Always do what? Tell the truth? Refuse manipulation? Have boundaries? I locked my phone and walked away. A few hours later, I hosted a second birthday celebration for Sophie, a smaller one, just close friends, a few classmates. My friend Jessica brought decorations. Our elderly neighbor brought cookies. One parent brought extra balloons. Nothing expensive, nothing elaborate, but it felt warm, safe. The replacement cake sat proudly in the center of the table. Vanilla cake, strawberry filling, purple butterflies. Sophie's name written across the top. When she saw it, her face lit up. For the first time since the restaurant, she looked completely happy. Before we lit the candles, she touched my arm. Mom? Yeah? Can we take a picture first? I smiled. Of course. She hesitated, then added quietly, just in case. My heart shattered. Just in case. 3 simple words. 3 words that revealed what Ryan had really taken from her. Not a cake. Security. Trust. The belief that happy moments were safe. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. We can take all the pictures you want. She smiled, Then I leaned closer and whispered, "And nobody is throwing this one away." Her grin returned immediately, a real grin, the kind children wear when they finally feel safe again. Later that evening, after the guests left, Sophie sat beside me on the couch. She seemed thoughtful. Eventually, she asked, "Is Uncle Ryan still getting married?" I honestly didn't know. "I don't know," she nodded, then asked something even harder. "If the wedding gets canceled, is it because of us?" I turned toward her. "No." She waited. When people make bad decisions, the consequences belong to them. She thought about that, then asked, "So if someone is mean and gets sad later, I don't have to fix it?" I smiled. Exactly. Children understand lessons much faster than adults. I kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart," she smiled. "Good." Then she went to brush her teeth. Meanwhile, my phone vibrated again. This time it was Rachel, I answered. Her voice sounded exhausted. "Emily?" "Yeah." "The venue gave Ryan until tomorrow morning." I sat up straighter. "What happens then?" "If the balance isn't paid and the paperwork issue isn't resolved, they release the ballroom." I remained silent. Then Rachel said something. That surprised me. "My parents refuse to pay anything until Ryan explains the guarantor documents." I could hear frustration in her voice. Anger, too. "He keeps claiming you promised to sign and changed your mind." Of course he did. The lie was evolving, just like I knew it would. Then Rachel asked, "Would you be willing to come to the venue tomorrow?" I hesitated. "Why?" "Because everyone keeps talking over each other." She sounded tired. "So come tell the truth in person." I looked toward Sophie's bedroom. Part of me wanted nothing to do with any of it. I wanted peace, distance, silence. But another part of me understood something important. If I stayed home, Ryan would keep controlling the story. He would keep performing, keep manipulating, keep rewriting reality. Finally, I answered, "I'll come." Rachel exhaled. "Thank you. But I'm not coming to save the wedding." "I know." There was a pause. Then she said something that stayed with me. "I'm not sure there is a wedding left to save." After we ended the call, I sat quietly in the dark living room, thinking. And for the first time, I realized Ryan had made a massive mistake. He believed the danger was me refusing to help him. He thought that was the problem. What he failed to understand was much worse. People were starting to ask questions, and once people start asking questions, they often discover answers they weren't supposed to find. The next morning would prove exactly how dangerous that could be. The next morning, I arrived at the venue 15 minutes early. Old habits. Years of event planning had trained me to show up before everyone else. The building looked exactly the same as it always had. Elegant lobby, fresh flowers, polished marble, floors, people moving quickly between meetings. Normally, walking through those doors felt familiar, comfortable. That morning felt different. This time I wasn't there to solve a problem. I was there because I refused to solve one. As I stepped into the lobby, I immediately spotted Rachel. She stood near the reception desk with her arms folded across her chest. She looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had spent an entire night realizing they might not know the person they planned to marry. Beside her stood her parents. Both looked serious. Neither looked happy. My mother sat alone on a nearby sofa. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept. And then there was Ryan, standing near the front desk in a navy suit, trying very hard to appear calm, failing miserably. The second he saw me, he started walking toward me. Fast, too fast. Finally, I stopped several feet away. "Good morning." His jaw tightened. "This has gone far enough." I didn't respond. "You need to tell everyone this is a misunderstanding." There it was again, the fantasy. The idea that reality could simply be edited if he complained loudly enough. "It isn't a misunderstanding." His face darkened. Rachel looked away. That alone told me a lot. She already knew, or at least suspected. Enough, Ryan lowered his voice. Don't embarrass me. I almost laughed. Embarrass him? As if I had forged documents, as if I had lied to my fiancé, as if I had thrown away a child's birthday cake. You embarrassed yourself. His eyes narrowed. Before he could answer, Rachel's father stepped forward. What exactly is going on? The question landed heavily. Ryan immediately switched tactics. His expression softened. His voice changed. Suddenly, he sounded wounded, victimized. The performance had begun. Emily got upset. Rachel closed her eyes. Apparently, she had heard this version before. Ryan continued. She agreed to help with the venue months ago. I remained silent. Then she changed her mind. Still silent. Now she's trying to punish me. Rachel's father looked at me, waiting, so I reached into my bag, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the reception desk. No speeches, no dramatic introduction, just documents. Facts. Paper tends to win arguments against feelings, especially when someone has been lying. I opened the folder. These are the original emails. Slid them forward. The introduction email, the referral email, the venue correspondence, every document clearly showed the same thing. I introduced Ryan to the venue. Nothing more, nothing less. Rachel's father read quietly. Rachel's mother leaned closer. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Then I placed the guarantor form beside the emails, the forged signature. The room became noticeably quieter. That's not my signature. Rachel looked directly at Ryan. He avoided eye contact. Interesting? Very interesting. Until that moment, he had been confident. Now he suddenly seemed interested in the carpet. Rachel picked up the document, studied it, then looked at me. You never signed this? No. She turned toward Ryan. Did she? Ryan hesitated. That hesitation lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it was enough. Everyone saw it. Everyone noticed. And once people notice hesitation, trust starts dying. I thought she was okay with it. Rachel stared at him. That's not what I asked. Silence. He swallowed. I assumed. The lobby became very quiet, because assumptions don't create signatures. Assumptions don't add company names to contracts. Assumptions don't happen by accident. Rachel slowly placed the document back on the table. Then she asked another question. One simple question, the kind that destroys weak lies. Why didn't you tell me? Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out, because there wasn't a good answer. There never had been. Melissa, the venue manager, finally emerged from her office. The moment she arrived, the atmosphere changed. Professional, official, final. She carried a folder, a very thick folder, and when she placed it on the desk, Ryan visibly tensed. Not a good sign. Thank you all for coming. Nobody answered. Melissa opened the folder. Our records indicate an outstanding balance. She looked directly at Ryan, along with concerns regarding guarantor authorization. Ryan immediately stepped forward. We can work this out. Melissa remained calm. Can you pay the remaining balance today? Silence. That wasn't the response he'd expected. He looked around, at Rachel, at her parents, at my mother, anyone, everyone, searching for help, searching for a rescue, searching for the safety net that had always appeared before. But nobody moved. Nobody volunteered. Nobody stepped in. For the first time in his life, Ryan was standing alone. His voice became quieter. Not today. Melissa nodded once, almost sadly. As outlined in your contract, failure to provide payment results in cancellation of the ballroom reservation. My mother gasped. Rachel closed her eyes. Ryan looked stunned, as if consequences were somehow shocking, so. If contracts should behave differently for him. This is ridiculous. Melissa didn't react. You signed the agreement. This isn't fair. Still no reaction. The wedding is in 2 days. Nothing. Rules don't care about fairness. Contracts don't care about emotions. Eventually, Ryan pointed at me. This happened because of her. There it was. The blame. The final refuge of people who refuse accountability. Everyone looked at him. Nobody looked at me. Nobody agreed. And for the first time, I think Ryan noticed. Really noticed. Rachel's father folded his arms. No. Ryan blinked. What? This happened because of you. Silence. The words hung in the air. Heavy, undeniable. Rachel's father continued. You lied. Another silence. You used someone else's business information. Another silence. You failed to pay. Another silence. And now you're looking for someone else to blame. Ryan looked completely lost, like someone watching a script fall apart, because all his life, people had protected him, excused him, explained him, rescued him. Now they weren't, and he genuinely didn't know how to function without it. Rachel finally spoke. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, which somehow felt worse than anger. Did you throw away Sophie's birthday cake? Ryan froze. There it was, the question. Not finances, not contracts, not venues. The cake. The moment that started everything. The moment that revealed who he really was. His answer came slowly. It was just a cake. Rachel looked at him. Really looked at him. And something changed in her eyes. Not anger, not sadness, recognition. The kind that happens when someone finally sees the truth. A truth that was probably there all along. She nodded once, very slowly. Then, she stepped back, creating distance between them. Physical distance, emotional distance, the kind that matters. Ryan noticed immediately. Rachel, she didn't answer. Rachel. Still nothing. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then she finally spoke, and the entire room went silent. Maybe the wedding isn't the problem. Ryan stared at her, confused. What? She took a deep breath, then looked directly into his eyes. Maybe. The problem is that I don't know who I'm marrying. The silence that followed felt endless, and for the first time that morning, Ryan looked scared. The room didn't move for a few seconds. It felt like even the air had stopped. Ryan stood there staring at Rachel as if he was waiting for her to take it back, to soften it, to laugh, to turn it into something smaller. But she didn't. Her expression stayed steady, not angry anymore, just clear. That clarity seemed to unsettle him more than any shouting ever could. You're not serious, he said quietly. Rachel didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the document still on the desk, then at the forged signature, then back at him. I am serious, she said. Her voice wasn't shaking. That's what made it real. Ryan tried to recover. He turned slightly, like he was addressing everyone now. This is all being blown out of proportion. Nobody reacted. No nods. No agreement. Not even from my mother this time. That silence seemed to confuse him. He wasn't used to it. He exhaled sharply. Okay, fine. I messed up the paperwork. My mother's head lifted slightly. A small hope. A crack in the tension. But Rachel didn't move. Ryan noticed that too. So he continued faster. I should have told you about the form, okay? I get it, but this... He gestured toward the desk. This is not worth destroying everything over. Rachel finally spoke. This isn't about the form. His mouth closed. For the first time, he had nothing ready to say. She stepped closer to the desk. Her fingers lightly touched the paper with the forged signature. This is about you using someone's identity. A pause. This is about you lying. To me, another pause. This is about you lying to everyone. Ryan shook his head immediately. I didn't lie. Rachel looked at him, long, hard. Then she said one sentence that hit harder than anything else in the room. "You didn't tell." The truth even once. The air shifted again. My mother made a quiet sound, like she wanted to interrupt but couldn't find the words. Ryan's face tightened. "This is ridiculous." But his voice wasn't confident anymore. It was thin. Rachel turned slightly toward me. "Can I ask one more thing?" I nodded. She looked back at Ryan. "Did you throw away her daughter's birthday cake?" That question again, the one he kept trying to minimize. Ryan let out a short laugh. Frustration, deflection. It was a cake. "Rachel." Her expression changed slightly at that. Not anger. Something more final. "You keep saying that like it means nothing." Ryan shrugged. "Because it doesn't." Rachel nodded slowly, almost like she had been confirming something in her mind. Then she said, "That's the problem." Silence again. She picked up her bag. Everyone watched her. Even Ryan. "Where are you?" "Going," he asked quickly. Rachel didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at him one last time, and there was no confusion in her eyes anymore, only decision. "I can't marry someone I don't trust." The words landed heavily. Ryan's face changed instantly. "What?" But she had already turned slightly away. "This isn't just about the wedding anymore." Her voice stayed calm. "I don't believe you." Ryan stepped forward. "Rachel, come on. This is insane." She shook her head. "No, just that. Simple. Final." Her parents stood behind her, not stopping her, not encouraging her, just watching, understanding. Rachel exhaled slowly, then added, "If you can lie about something this small, I don't want to find out what else you can lie about." That line hit differently, because it wasn't about the cake, it was about everything underneath it. Ryan opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. For the first time, there was no argument left, no excuse left, no manipulation left, just consequences, arriving all at once. Rachel walked toward the exit. Her mother followed her. Her father paused for a moment, then looked at Ryan. Not angry, not emotional, just disappointed. "You had a good thing," he said quietly. Then he walked out too. The door closed behind them, and the room felt emptier immediately. Ryan stood there frozen, like he was waiting for someone to fix it. My mother finally broke the silence. "Maybe we should all calm down." I looked at her. She stopped mid-sentence, because even she knew it didn't fit anymore. Ryan turned toward me suddenly. "This is your fault." There it was again. The reflex, the blame, the escape. "You started this. I didn't react. You sent her those messages. I stayed still. You made it worse." For a moment, I just looked at him. Really looked at him. Not as my brother. Not as family, but as someone who genuinely believed accountability was optional. "No," I said quietly. "You did this." That sentence seemed to land harder than the others, because there was no emotion in it. No anger. Just fact. Ryan shook his head. "This is not over." I nodded slightly. "It is for me." That confused him. "What?" I picked up the folder with the real documents, closed it, put it back in my bag. "It's done." My mother looked between us. "Emily," I turned to her, "you don't need me to fix this." She opened her mouth, but no words came, because she knew I was right. Ryan suddenly laughed again, but it wasn't real anymore. It was empty. "You're really just going to walk away?" I looked at him one last time. "You've been walking away from responsibility for years." A pause. "I'm just not following you anymore." Then I turned and walked out. No shouting behind me, no dramatic chase, just silence. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. Not because anything was solved, but because something had finally stopped. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to hold everything together, and somewhere behind me, I knew Ryan was finally standing in something he had spent his entire life avoiding: the consequences of being believed too long and excused too often. The wedding wasn't just collapsing anymore. It had already collapsed. Now it was just becoming visible.